Hi there, welcome into the show. All around the world, professional footballers face the prospect of going back to their day jobs after the international break has come to an end. Three long faces here. Steve Nicol, Stuart Holden, Craig Burley. We also have Sid Lowe on board. Some players will face the prospect of new bosses at work. I'm thinking of Liverpool players, because Jurgen Klopp is about to take charge for the very first time. Liverpool start off against Spurs this weekend in the Premier League. Alison Bender caught up with Jurgen Klopp at his press conference.
Well, I'm here in Liverpool's media room at Melwood Training Ground, awaiting Jurgen Klopp. Not quite the circus we saw last week for his unveiling, but busy nonetheless, as Klopp takes the reins for his first game at White Hart Lane on Saturday.
We want to get back trust. We want to from outside, and we want to get back confidence. More and more and more and more in our own skills, our own quality.
Of course, the key question with less than a week with his squad was how different Klopp's 11 would look from Brendan Rodgers' 11.
Everything is different in this moment, of course. So for sure we want to look different. That's because only because I'm here, everything is different. So that's what I expect. Some things you can change like this, of course. You can change mentality like this. You can change readiness like this.
He reiterated how he's just a normal guy and said that he was extremely surprised at the public's appetite for him.
I met a guy and his wife with a dog. I would say they were about 50, and they asked me for a photo. I said, of course. Next day's in the newspaper, and they give me the photo. Oh, you were there, you were there. It looks like I'm always in restaurants and bars.
I wonder what you make of if you've seen your lookalike going around town getting photos with the fans. Have you seen your doppelganger?
My doppelganger? No.
No? You should look out for him.
Maybe many people around there look like me. Bad, not the best shape in the world, and funny hairstyle, and then even glasses, and he looked like me. So no, I'm not. I don't know nothing about him.
So a tough gig for Klopp, having to lay down roots in the city as well as rebuilding a squad. But as he said in his unveiling press conference, it's not about what people talk about when you come into a club, but what they say when you leave.
Alison Bender all over that Melwood training ground. They did a better job in the car park than Jurgen Klopp did. I think he got lost on his first day. He's only had 3 days, Stevie. Can he change that much in 3 days as a coach?
As far as the lineup for the game, I don't think there'll be an awful lot of change. I think the one thing you would expect would be an attitude change. Certainly him coming in has given everybody a lift, and I think you'll see that against Spurs at the weekend.
Says he wants to see more bravery, he wants to see more fun in the eyes of the Liverpool players. Are we going to see that on Saturday?
I'm not sure about Saturday, but because of the limited time he's had. But I think eventually we will. I think we're universal like most. It's a great coup for Liverpool, this. A lot of clubs wanted him. He's going to find out what he's going to have to work with. Forget this, he can't play a pressing game with these young players. He can. I've even heard Adam Lallana can't do it. Adam Lallana did do it at Southampton with Pochettino, because that's what made him successful. He's got young enough players to go and get an energetic game. Has he got good enough players? That's the big question.
That is a big question, because we're going to see how far this team gets into January, and if they're going to need to. This is what Stevie thinks.
This is what you're going with for the first 11.
Well, I've gone the front three. I mean, you think of Dortmund 3 years ago, and it was Lewandowski, it was Götze, and it was Royce. I think he'll try and do the same with Sturridge, Coutinho and Lallana. I don't think there's an awful lot of choice behind that. You know, Milner, Lucas Leiva and Chan will hold the midfield, and then that'll be the back five is normal. I think Moreno will start.
But they're all energetic players. You know what I mean? They can be. I mean, all right, Coutinho or Lallana might be a little bit lazy, but they can do it. So if he wants to play a higher tempo game even after a couple of days and says, listen, this is what I want to do, I want to press a little bit higher, I want to squeeze the game up, there's no reason why any of these cannot do it.
I think, though, the fact that you said earlier that he's only had like 2 days with 90% of the players, and I think the fact that it's away from home is going to help him, because it means that he doesn't have
to chase it.
He doesn't have to chase it. He can get things tight, and he can build it slowly. And I think that's what he'll do. I don't think you'll see Lallana and Coutinho way up high.
Did you agree with the starting 11, Stuart? Is that what we're going to see? We're going to see different sort of football being played?
I think the question that remains to be seen, and we'll find out on Saturday, is whether Klopp's going to go back to the formation he played at Dortmund, which was typically a 4-2-3-1, with one of the deep-lying players being a little bit more creative, the other one being more mobile, getting around the pitch. So I think I could see perhaps Can playing in there with Milner, or maybe Milner tilted to the right. But it's going to be interesting to see how he realizes which players he has that can fit into his system. Because we saw Brendan Rodgers during his reign. He didn't know whether he wanted to play 4-4-2, then he went to 3 at the back, then he kept trying to plug the pieces, as opposed to, I think Klopp's going to say, this is the way I want to play. If you don't fit the mold, tough. And in January, he's going to bring in players that will fit that mold and get him results.
And I think from Liverpool supporters' perspective, if they do lose games, and it's going to happen, I think what they want to hear is a manager who's going to stand in front of the cameras and the media, looking for some answers to some straight questions, and getting some honesty, and not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes that know the game pretty well by saying, well, we played well, we were great, we did this, we did that. I think Klopp's going to come out and say, no, we were not good enough, and the players need to learn. There'll be no fudging it at all.
We've also got Sid Lowe with us from Madrid. Sid, I want to bring you into the conversation. What are your expectations for Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool and the sort of football we might see them play?
Well, the first thing is to back up what everyone's saying, that this is, I think, extraordinarily exciting. I think it's one of the most exciting signings we've seen a club make for a very, very long time. And I think as well, one of the things that most struck me about Klopp, certainly in his introductory press conference, was that talk about how, it's very nice to play pretty patterns, but if you're doing that here at Anfield, you can't. That idea that he seems to have, and certainly I saw it a couple of times at Dortmund, particularly when they beat Real Madrid 4-1 in the Champions League semi-final. That idea of the fans and the players kind of coming together, the rhythm that the players play at has to be kind of imposed a little bit by the stands. And so I think he's going to not just invigorate the team, at least in the short term, I think he might do something for the fans as well.
Didn't have any superstars when he took over at Dortmund, did he? But he seemed to get the best out of the likes of Lewandowski and Hummels and Kagawa. He really raised their level. Can he do the same with this current crop of Liverpool players?
Well, you're talking about players that he brought in, that the way he did his scouting worked. That's where Brendan Rodgers went wrong. The players that he has right at this minute, I'm not sure they can reach those heights. That means that him and whoever he uses to find these players, that's what will make the difference eventually. He certainly has a lot to do, though, to get Liverpool from where they are right now to pushing up that Premier League table.
Tough opening assignment against the only team we haven't lost since the opening weekend, I should remind you, in the Premier League, and that is Spurs. When we return, Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale in a little bit of a spat in Madrid. Now, you think Cristiano Ronaldo and Gareth Bale would be happy campers, having helped their respective nations to Euro 2016, but back in Madrid, all does not seem well. This is the cover of AS. I'm not going to attempt to translate it. I'm going to bring in an expert to do that. Sid Lowe is with us from Madrid. What did that front page say exactly, Sid?
Well, I'm going to go for the more correct translation, but the slightly less funny and slightly less rude one, which is to say it's two roosters in the hen house. In other words, two big, imposing, important personalities, and possibly not quite enough room for the two of them. This obviously comes off the back of the comments made by Jonathan Barnett, Gareth Bale's agent, in which he talked about how, and people have forgotten this bit actually, in which he talked about how there was no real problem between these two players, that they didn't hate each other, but they have very different personalities. And the way he put it was, Gareth Bale doesn't particularly want to be the best underpants seller in the world. He just wants to be the best player.
According to reports today, Sid, I don't know if you can confirm this, there was an apology made from Gareth Bale to Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's even talking to his lawyer about changing agents. Is that true?
Yeah, I can explain this one for you. This is a story that was put out by Radio Marca this afternoon by a guy called Paco García Caridad. When the story came out, I must admit my initial reaction was, there's absolutely no way this is true. Certainly absolutely no way that it's true in terms of Bale talking to lawyers about breaking up with his agent. Not very long after that, a story came out on one of the other radio stations in which Bale's agent described the story as, I think the words were, disgusting, a lie, a disgrace, completely not true. Now, for what it's worth, I wouldn't be that surprised if Bale has said to Ronaldo, look, you know, I'm sure it wasn't meant like that, I'm sorry. And that's the underlying thing here, of course, is whether or not, by saying this, Bale's agent has kind of helped his dressing room relationships. The likely answer, of course, is no.
Is that the grand Machiavellian scheme behind all of this?
No, he's got an agent who doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. It's quite the simplistic
There's a few
way
of those these days, isn't there?
To look at it. I mean, Gareth Bale can get on with what he's doing. He'll sell whatever he needs to sell by his performances on the field. You really don't want to start getting up Ronaldo's nose, because we saw last year the antics of Ronaldo in front of the Bernabeu crowd, and that really piled the pressure on Bale when he was having a hard time. So he doesn't need this from his agent.
What do you make of it, Stevie?
There's one thing I know, it's not going to bring them closer together.
It isn't?
Well, because every time Barnett opens his mouth, Ronaldo's going to be going to Bale and saying, what's going on here? It's hardly bringing them closer together, is it?
Stewie?
Well, I look across at Barcelona as the front three there. They seem to, on the pitch, enjoy themselves, off the pitch, enjoy themselves. Now, I have no problem with Ronaldo and Bale not being friends off the pitch. It doesn't matter. The main thing for Real Madrid is that when those two are playing together on the field, that they're both performing at a high level, and that this is irrelevant in my mind.
Said we know that Ronaldo and Bale apparently don't really go for dinner or socialise together. Is it a kind of normal thing at Madrid in terms of the players? Do they socialise sort of generally together, or is it pretty much they just train and get on with their jobs?
Yeah, I think it depends on the eras. You go through. There's been different eras at Real Madrid where the squad has been closer or less close. I think what tends to happen, I mean, you guys will know this much better than me, that it tends to go along grounds of small groups. So quite often, of course, for example, you'll have, for example, at the moment, Kovacic and Modric, two Croatians who will be friendly. You'll have players who will make friendships with people from the same nationality, or with players that they can converse with. So, for example, Sami Khedira and Toni Kroos were quite close. When Steve McManaman was there, he was very good friends with Santi Solari, for example, for the simple reason that the two of them spoke very good English. Solari, of course, slightly better than McManaman. And you have this situation where that's really what happens. It's rare that you get the whole squad together. I think it was always quite likely that Bale and Ronaldo weren't going to be close, simply because they're so different in terms of personalities. And I think there is, to go back to that initial headline, the two roosters in the hen house, I think there is a slight sense of them kind of competing for the same position as being the star at the club. And Ronaldo in particular, I think, probably feels that Bale has partly come to take that role from him. One other thing that I think it's kind of worth pointing out here is that this all starts with an interview that Jonathan Barnett gave, and I think there was kind of an element of playfulness and an element of kind of tongue-in-cheek winding up in that interview. That said, it probably doesn't help Gareth very much.
Well, as we return to domestic action in La Liga, a reminder of the standings and how close it is at the top. Villarreal, top of the Parliament. Real Madrid just tucked in a point behind them. Barcelona also level on 15 points. And the two big guns, it seemed to have very winnable games this weekend. Real Madrid against Levante, Barcelona, Rayo Vallecano. Any danger of them dropping points?
Not very likely. The last round of games was a round of games in which none of the top six won, and that kind of left Villarreal top despite having been beaten by Levante. But I think these are two games that, in theory at least, Madrid and Barcelona are very, very clear favourites at home. Levante, possibly the weakest team that Madrid could have faced. And Rayo Vallecano, while they're a very good side and a very exciting side at home, because of the way they play with such a high defence, it does tend to be the kind of approach that against the big two, certainly away from home, sees them concede a lot of goals.
Yeah, Real Madrid have won 7 in a row against Levante, Barcelona 9 in a row against Rayo Vallecano. Thanks, Sids! We will be turning our attention to West London and Chelsea. All is not well for the Blues.
Knowing Jose Mourinho, the one thing I always admire about him and his team, they always play for him. They always try. So the ingredients are correct. He just has to find a solution to go and get his team back in track. And I think he'll do it.
Well, Sir Alex confident that Jose can turn it around. The British media not so confident. This from yesterday's London Evening Standard. Mourinho facing a mutiny at Chelsea. Many of the first teamers angered by the public criticism from Jose Mourinho. Craig, what do you make of this?
Well, there is a rumour that several senior players are not particularly happy with him and may have down tools. I mean,
Matic, Oscar, Azpilicueta.
One senior player they say has got a nickname for him, and it's not very
What do you
it's
imagine
not,
that might
it's
be?
not very
Don't
pleasant.
answer that.
And by the way, Mourinho himself has just been smashed by another FA fine of 50,000 sterling, $80,000. There was talk about a stadium ban. So he's off again running and moaning about the FA and the Premier League and the press. After this long international break, he started again 2 days before the Aston Villa game. I disagree with what Sir Alex says in a way, because clearly at the end at Real Madrid, the players there were not trying for him. There was a mutiny at Real Madrid, and clearly there's a big problem here too.
What has happened to this famous togetherness? Players willing to die for the cause for Mourinho?
Do you know, to me, this almost seems like a generation thing. Players nowadays, you're not allowed to criticise them. These guys that you're talking about, the Matic and Azpilicuetas, they're not happy because he criticised them in front of the other players. Are you telling me that Alex Ferguson never criticised a player in front of the rest of the players?
Him, Steve, as well, and then putting Matic on the pitch and then taking him back off again. Yeah, they had to get a goal, but you know, he's a senior player. If you were to
just generally, they're so worrying. Trend, every player now who gets any trouble is crying. And I say the word crying. I spoke to a former Premier League manager last week who told me at half-time during a Premier League game, he had a go at a player and the player started crying. I mean, what's wrong with these people?
that is
if you're not doing well, if you're not doing well, you have to be able to take criticism.
Correct.
What are you supposed to do with a player who's just horrible?
But does that criticism have to be public? I mean, Jose Mourinho is publicly criticising some senior
he's publicly
players,
doing everything these days. Yeah. He's washed all his dirty linen this season in public. The whole shebang, the lot, whether it's behind the scenes, whether it's the medical staff, whether it's the senior players, whether it's the press, everything is washed in public. And that's why he is under so much pressure. Ally that to results. You've got the player of the year last year, Hazard hasn't tried a tap. You've got Cesc Fabregas, can't kick a ball this year. You've got Matic, who was excellent, struggling. You can't keep a clean sheet. Your goalkeeper's out, your strikers fighting with everybody. And you as a manager are not in control because you want to fight the world. It seems as if he wants to fight.
He's lost his dressing room leader, which was John Terry, you know, for the most part. And he made a point at the start of this season of saying Terry's not my guy at centre of defence anymore. And sometimes when you have those types of rumblings behind a coach's back, or there seems to be this big disconnect, you need one of those leaders, or you need someone in the dressing room to say, right, stuff Jose Mourinho, we're going to stick together as a team no matter what, and we're going to get results. It can go two ways, but in this case it just seems to be everyone's going in different directions and it's performing on the pitch.
I like this. I do like it because I'm not saying he's had it easy, Mourinho. Certainly not. He had to do great things at Porto and he's managed in Italy and Spain, and I get that. He was without strikers in his first year. He got his strikers. They coasted to the league last year. But this is a real test of his man management skills. Forget tactics, of his man management skills now. 16th in the league, everybody looking for him to fail. Rumblings from players that you always get when you're losing games. The press always hear about it, funny enough, when you're losing. They've got a game at the weekend that they would normally be nailed on to get a result against Villa, who's struggling. This is a big test of Mourinho's character and managerial skills.
If Jose Mourinho has lost more than a couple of players, he's done.
Correct.
As a coach, you can lose a guy and maybe you can bring them back in, but it's very rare you can actually get them back to where you had them. And if you've lost 2 or 3 or 4, he's done.
Well, let's talk about the players. Let's talk about the players, because Miguel Delaney actually looked at Chelsea's squad and came up with a list of who deserves credit, who deserves some slack, and who deserves criticism so far this season. Guys, any names on those lists that you think should be in a different column, perhaps? Azpilicueta and Begovic, Kennedy, Ramirez and Villian.
I don't know why Costa's getting cut slack.
Why?
To be
well,
honest.
he's not had a great service, has he? Maybe you can give him some for that.
Well, you won't get much service when you're sat in the stand.
I mean, look at the names on the criticism. I mean, your main players. We spoke last year, Matic was the difference, other than Oscar. Costa. And you've got Fabregas and Hazard, and John Terry, the captain, the guy who was the glue last season. So you've got nearly half a team on the list that just haven't performed.
And yet a lot of those players under the criticism column are playing every game, 90 minutes, aren't they?
And one that I'm sure raises many eyebrows in Ivanovic, who could almost have his own column this season.
Beyond criticism.
You know, I think he has, as Craig said, this is a big test And you wouldn't normally say that, right, for an Aston Villa game, but it's a big test of Mourinho, how he's going to piece together this squad. We might see him start to breed some youngsters, give them more responsibility. Maybe Loftus-Cheek comes in, maybe play Baba Rahman at left back. But time is certainly ticking if they want to make a push to that top four.
And we brought John Terry back in for the Southampton game at home, made a mistake, at least one didn't work. Newcastle away, 2-0 down, fought back. All right, last 15 minutes was great, but it was desperation. Got a point. That was a game we all thought, Chelsea are going to win. It's Newcastle, they're struggling. Then Southampton at home. This is them, they're going to pick it up. This is where the season starts. Beaten, comfortably, by the way. Now it's Villa. What happens if Villa win against Chelsea at the weekend? I tell you what, it is going to throw up
where's this
so
all
many
going,
questions.
Stevie? Where's this all going? This third season we often talk about for Mourinho. Is it happening again?
At the present time, the longer this goes on, the closer he gets to Abramovich just saying goodbye. I don't care whether he's just signed a new contract or not.
Yep.
If they keep losing games, Abramovich is just going to end it.
But again, he started today. In his press conference today, fine 50,000. I know that's a lot of money, right? Even for somebody who's getting paid millions. But that's what he's been fined. Instead of going to the press conference and just saying, well, yeah, anyway, the decision's been made, let's move on. He's away again, barrage after barrage, criticism of everything for it, and let's look at other managers. Once it used to be a deflecting tool, but it ain't deflecting from anything anymore. And he's had an international break and we talked about it yesterday or the day before. The players have been away for 10 days and haven't had to listen to him. They get straight off the plane, and what's he doing? He's moaning and complaining about everything again. He's just set the tone straight away for the weekend.
Well, a different sort of tone being set elsewhere in West London. QPR's Massimo Luongo has been nominated for a Ballon d'Or. We'll talk to him next. Now, Messi, Ronaldo, eat your hearts out. Massimo Luongo is on the FIFA Ballon d'Or shortlist for 2015. The Socceroos midfielder who was the MVP of the Asian Cup. 9 appearances for QPR this season. Massimo Luongo, a bit surprised about this, talking to ESPN FC's Jason Dacey.
To be fair, I thought it was a bit of a wind-up. I didn't know what was going on. I only found out by Twitter. So you can't really believe everything you see on the internet. It was only until my call up to Australia then they clarified that it was the official list.
How do you feel about it?
Obviously, it's quite exciting being on the list, being under the big names on there. But I think it shocked me at first. It's hard to explain the feeling because there's a lot going on, in the season and playing for Australia and stuff like that. So, trying to take the attention away from all that, and I'm trying to kind of keep my head down a little bit.
You see, that's the sort of pedigree you get when you spend a couple of seasons at
Swindon
Town. Swindon Town's finest.
Is it wind-up, no? Is it right?
No, he is on the ballot.
He looks excited, doesn't he?
Could he win it?
We will see it next time. Thanks. Hi there, welcome into the show. All around the world, professional footballers face the prospect of going back to their day jobs after the international break has come to an end. Three long faces here. Steve Nicol, Stuart Holden, Craig Burley. We also have Sid Lowe on board. Some players will face the prospect of new bosses at work. I'm thinking of Liverpool players because Jurgen Klopp is about to take charge for the very first time. Liverpool start off against Spurs this weekend in the Premier League. Alison Bender caught up with Jurgen Klopp at his press conference.
Well, I'm here in Liverpool's media room at Melwood Training Ground, awaiting Jurgen Klopp. Not quite the circus we saw last week for his unveiling.
He's going to find out what he's going to have to work with. Forget this, he can't play a pressing game with these young players. He can. I've even heard Adam Lallana can't do it. Adam Lallana did do it at Southampton with Pochettino because that's what made him successful. He's got young enough players to go and get an energetic game. Has he got good enough players? That's the big question.
That is a big question because we're going to see how far this team gets into January and if they're going to need to. This is what Stevie thinks.
This is what you're going with for the first 11.
Well, I've gone the front three. I mean, you think of Dortmund 3 years ago and it was Lewandowski, it was Götze and it was Royce. I think he'll try and do the same with Sturridge, Coutinho and Lallana. I don't think there's an awful lot of choice behind that. You know, Milner, Lucas Leiva and Chan will hold the midfield, and then that'll be the back five as normal. I think Moreno will start.
But they're all energetic players.
Public's appetite for him.
I met a guy and his wife with a dog. I would say they were about 50, and they asked me for a photo. I said, of course. Next day in the newspaper, and they give me the photo. Oh, you were there, you were there. It looks like I'm always in restaurants and bars.
I wonder what you make of if you've seen your lookalike going around town getting photos with the fans. Have you seen your doppelganger?
My doppelganger? No.
No? You should look out for him.
Maybe many people around there look like me. Bad, not the best shape in the world, and funny hairstyle, and then even glasses, and he look like me. So no, I'm not. I don't know nothing about him.
So a tough gig for Klopp, having to lay down roots in the city as well as rebuilding a squad. But as he said in his unveiling, but busy nonetheless, as Klopp takes the reins for his first game at White Hart Lane on Saturday.
We want to get back trust. We want to from outside, and we want to go and get back confidence. More and more and more and more in our own skills, our own quality.
Of course, the key question with less than a week with his squad was how different Klopp's 11 would look from Brendan Rodgers' 11.
Everything is different in this moment, of course. For sure we want to look different. That's because only because I'm here, everything is different. So that's what I expect. Some things you can change like this, of course. You can change mentality like this. You can change readiness like this.
He reiterated how he's just a normal guy and said that he was extremely surprised at the press conference. It's not about what people talk about when you come into a club, but what they say when you leave.
Alison Bender all over that Melwood training ground. He did a better job in the car park than Jurgen Klopp did. I think he got lost on his first day. He's only had 3 days, Stevie. Can you change that much in 3 days as a coach?
As far as the lineup for the game, I don't think there'll be an awful lot of change. I think the one thing you would expect would be an attitude change. Certainly him coming in has given everybody a lift, and I think you'll see that against Spurs at the weekend.
Says he wants to see more bravery, he wants to see more fun in the eyes of the Liverpool players. Are we going to see that on Saturday?
I'm not sure about Saturday, but because of the limited time he's had. But I think eventually we will. I think we're universal like most. It's a great coup for Liverpool, this. A lot of clubs wanted him.